Hello, everyone, and happy Thursday. I hope your week has been wonderful. Mine is fantastic. I mentioned the other day in a post that my bestie is visiting from Portland, Oregon, which is really fantastic. Those people that we share long-standing connections with are really like the best. They're the best. So having a great week with my bestie and wanted to pop in today to talk about how to reconnect with your MVP. And connecting with your MVP is really important because when you're not connected to your MVP, you really become very dissatisfied in life. So a lot of people out there are feeling pretty dissatisfied. I hear you, we talk to you, engage in conversation. A lot of people are feeling pretty frustrated, feeling like, oh, is this all there is? Some people are having climate angst. Some people are worried about the economy. Some people get upset about our political scenario. And it really doesn't matter what those big picture issues are that are impacting us. At the bottom of it all, the problem that is causing dissatisfaction is that when we look at those big picture issues, we get disconnected from our own MVP. We find it difficult to connect with our MVP. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what that is. Your MVP is your meaning, value, and purpose. And when you give up on your MVP, that means giving up on your dreams, the things that bring your life meaning. For example, if you felt that part of your meaning in life is to be a musician, to entertain people musically, or to expand the field of what is happening in music, and you gave up on that because you needed to have a more practical job, you're going to feel like there's a little bit less meaning in your life. Giving up on your values. So compromising your values. Everybody has to make compromises, and you can compromise on some things, but when you compromise on your values, then you end up feeling compromised. And this is a really interesting thing about humans. And this is how we work a lot as coaches. So in coaching, we view all of our clients as being already creative, resourceful, and whole. We know that part of our role as coaches is to help people get more satisfaction out of life. It's one of the three things that we do as coaches: help people with satisfaction. And one of the key ways that we help people move towards more satisfying lives is to help them get clear on their values and develop something along the lines of a value statement, really, for your own personal self. And that might seem like it seems like one of two things to people. It seems either arrogant because corporations have value statements and I'm not that important. I just have to go along. I don't get to call the shots. Or for other people, it feels silly. It feels too small. Of course, I know what my values are. That's not really the big deal here. But the thing is, when you are making compromises and you're compromising on your values, that sends like signals to the back of your brain that your life is really not that important, that what you value isn't important, and you are therefore not important, and that survival is going to require you to compromise on things that are more important or things that you value, and then survival becomes sort of meaningless. And when you start to get in touch with your values, a couple things happen. And I'm gonna actually save some of this for later because I'm just looking at my talking points here. So I'm gonna save this for later, but getting in touch with your values helps you realign with your values at this stage in your life. And when you start to do that, you get a lot more satisfied. You see ways in which you add value to the world because I believe personally, deep inside, each of us wants to add something of value to the world. We want to make a difference in the world. We want it, most of us want it to be positive. 1% of the population are people who are diagnosable with antisocial personality disorder. We're not going to worry about them right now. We're just going to worry about kind of the average person who's probably still watching this video, who really does want to add value to their own lives. They want to add value for other people. They don't want to benefit themselves at the expense of everyone else. They don't want to hurt other people. They really want to have a win-win scenario. So when you get in touch with your values and you can align your life with them and also experience other goods like experiencing abundance, experiencing closeness, relationships, then you know your life has meaning and value. And the next thing is, purpose. And I want to talk a little bit about that. And I want to talk about purpose partly because purpose is about the big picture. Whenever we feel like we have a purpose or you serve a purpose, the reality is if you're going to serve a purpose, the purpose is about service to an other, to a big picture. Most of us don't feel like our whole purpose in life is self-satisfaction. It was just what I want and who cares about anyone else. Again, 1% of people are sociopaths and they may or may not be listening to this, but you're probably not a sociopath. Just assume that for you, when you get in touch with your values, when you get in touch with what really means something to you, and you get in touch with your most cherished dreams, part of what you want is to feel like you matter in the world, to feel that you serve a purpose in the world, which means you need to serve a little bit. And the problem with that can come in when our need to serve gets sort of hijacked or taken over by people who are maybe in that 1% who kind of suck you dry, energy vampires, other toxic relationships, people who just aren't even cleaning their own lane. So maybe they're not vampires. Maybe they're not terrible people. Maybe they're good people, but they're going through a difficult time and they're just not doing their own work. And because they're not, they're putting a lot of unnecessary burden on you. I definitely work with people who deal with things like that. And those are the kinds of things that leave us dissatisfied, right? When we're not in good relationship with ourselves, when we're not in good relationship with the planet, when we're not living our dreams, when there is something we feel that we are here to do, that we really are aligned with that purpose and on fire for that purpose, and we're not able to do it, we feel dissatisfied. We feel like we're not doing what we ought to be doing. When we're not living by our own values, we start to feel like dissatisfied with ourselves as humans. And when we start feeling dissatisfied and we have lost touch with our meaning, value, and purpose, we we just have a hard time figuring out what the point of life is. And I don't know if you've ever read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He was a psychiatrist who spent some time in concentration camps. And what he discovered is that the people who were able to get through the camps and survive were people that could find or give meaning to that experience. They were people who didn't give up on meaning, didn't give up on their purpose. They had to make a lot of compromises to survive that situation, but they found meaning or created meaning within it. And that it turns out we can survive a lot of things if we can imbue them with meaning. So when we're feeling dissatisfied, it's because we've given up somehow our meaning, value, and purpose. And we start to feel dissatisfied, feel sort of blah, feel sort of lukewarm. And that's not the end of the world. Yeah, all it means if you're feeling dissatisfied, and if that happens to be you right now, all it means is one of a few things. Possibly life has changed and you haven't kept up with the changes. And that happens a lot. So you'll find people who, for example, are empty nesting, who for, 18 or 25 or 30 years, their whole MVP was about parenting in a super active way that involved driving people to different activities. And then they're empty nesting now, which means they have to find new MVPs. They have to find a new meaning, value, and purpose because active parenting of young people is not what they're doing all the time right now. So they have to shift gears and they have just ended up in a different chapter and they're out of alignment with their values because their values were situational related to parenting young children. And now they need to really look at what is important for this next chapter of their lives and what their values are in this moment. So sometimes life changes and we just don't keep up. Sometimes what happens is, how I was saying earlier, you might have some dreams about like maybe you wanted to be a musician and you felt that you were here to serve the world musically. In some cases, people may compromise themselves or some really cherished values on the way to the success that they think is their purpose in life. And I love Joseph Campbell's quote on a midlife crisis is not when you fail to reach the top of the ladder. It's when you reach the top of the ladder and you find out it's leaning against the wrong wall. So when you're dissatisfied, it's possible that's because you've succeeded at the wrong thing or you've compromised yourself along the way. You've compromised your meaning, value, and purpose on your way to a goal that might have been a very worthy goal, but you were not maintaining your integrity throughout. And now you're feeling kind of dissatisfied as a result. Sometimes, to kind of go back to what we were talking about with toxic relationships causing dissatisfaction, sometimes when we're dissatisfied, it's because we need to do the changing in our relationship. We need to relate differently to people at home, at work, or with our friends. We need to shift ourselves. A lot of times, and this I work on this with people all the time inside coaching, their perception is that the reason they're experiencing conflict or difficulty in a situation is all them, that they're the only ones that need to change. And they end up feeling pretty badly about themselves, dissatisfied with their relationships, not really understanding it. And through getting more self led and through working on some communication skills, they actually have readjusted how they're relating with friends and family and end up a lot more satisfied in those relationships as a result. So, in short, if you're struggling and feeling dissatisfied, all it means is you need a little bit of realignment. That's all it means. We have to take our cars in for realignments periodically. And as human beings, we need realignment. We need to realign with the current stage we're in of life. We need to realign with our values if we lost touch with them and they haven't changed, but we have gone the wrong direction. And sometimes we just really need to realign how we relate with other people, our partners, our lovers, our friends, our coworkers, our bosses, our jobs. We need to realign that relationship because purpose is really all about how we relate to that bigger picture. So when you have that need for realignment, how can you move forward toward greater satisfaction? What can you do in those situations? What you can do in those situations is get super clear on your values. Really sit down and think about what your top 3 values are. If you were a corporation, what would your value statement be? And while you're at it, why not a mission statement and decide what you do, what really is within your wheelhouse to do, given your values and given who you are and what you're capable of. What is it you're doing with your life? Identify your strengths. What are the strengths that you bring to this chapter of your life and how can you use them better? And between your values and your strengths, what you have there is great navigational equipment. That's your values on your life journey. And your strengths are your walking stick on your life journey. That's where you're going to lean on in order to move you forward. When you're going up a difficult obstacle, you lean on your strengths, just like you would lean on a walking stick to get up when you're hiking. So you have your values and your strengths, and you just need to reassess that. And that's a thing that we all need to do periodically. And the next thing that you really want to do when it comes to fulfilling your purpose is you need to clarify your boundaries with compassion. So I just offered Boundaries 101 a couple days ago, which was really great. And it'll be offered again next month. So if you didn't get a chance to do that, please come join in that. But it's super important to really clarify your boundaries, know what they are, and stay within them. Your boundaries are really just your limits as a human being, and you are limited in what you can do as a human being to like embody your values in the world, to use your strengths really wisely and effectively, and to relate beautifully to the rest of the world. And you need to stay in your lane, not be in other people's lanes, not let other people in your lane. And you need to do that with a lot of compassion because boundaries are difficult for everybody. It's really difficult to be on the receiving end of that sort of like, oh hey, you crossed over into my lane. And it's also hard to be in the giving end of that correction, like, oh hey, sweetheart, you crossed into my lane. It's really hard to be on either side of that. So you really want to be able to do that with utmost compassion and clarity about what your needs are in that moment. So that's what you can do to move towards greater satisfaction. One thing that can be super helpful, I want to suggest, and there's a link above in here, is that you think about if you're feeling a little bit of dissatisfaction, think about the 5-day self-liberation challenge. It is available now as a fully virtual standalone training that you can access anytime you're ready. All 5 videos are included and you get your workbook. It's for the low price of $18. And right now, all of those monies are going to charity between now and December 31st. So hop in that as soon as you can and access that challenge. There is at the end, by the time it's all over, if you were to decide you wanted to explore working with me, there is a coupon for 50% off a clarity call, but there's no obligation to do that. That self-liberation challenge is really helpful for people, even if they don't get coaching with me. And it is exactly the kind of thing that can help you move towards greater satisfaction and help you reconnect with your MVP, your meaning, value, and purpose in life. I am curious how all of this sits with you and how you're feeling about connection with meaning, value, and purpose as a path to satisfaction. I can't see comments in here while I'm recording. So if you have comments, questions, anything that you want to just drop them in the comments and I will review those later and I will respond. If you would prefer to do that privately, please feel free to hit the messenger and just shoot me a message. I love hearing from people. Have a beautiful weekend and I will talk with you soon. Bye.